got Sacred Derangement book out that is written by Jason Silva. Now, I've been following Jason because he is quite the poet. He is quite the speaker, and if you ever listen to him, especially if you are a follower, if you haven't heard of his Shots of Awe podcast or media, I've been following him for years, ever since he did Brain Games. And he is a beautiful, poetic, free flow thinker and speaker, and he's performed or spoken in front of multiple tech giants and inspired technologists to produce more output and be more creative. But in the experience of listening to Jason, you can't help but feel enamored and enraptured by his quills or quips, basically. And this is I think his very first book. I've never read his books before, and I think this is his first publication other than what he normally does, which is on digital and media. But now he's formally an author now, and this is amazing. While I have disagreements in some of his ways of choosing consciousness and reaching different states of consciousness, because I don't do drugs, there are definitely experiences that I believe that can happen through breath work. And when you do meditation and look within, and you're in alignment truly with the body and your nervous system and everything that's within, and you're meditating, and then apart from what other what other folks believe in, I align with my God. I align with my Creator in that, because it is beyond me that I can look within and I can reach these states by being present, by reaching this consciousness level of, I feel what's in my body. I can feel at the same time a dual experience of the external and then the internal. But I've never reached a point where I can actually activate my pineal gland like other people proclaim to do. And maybe that's something that's later, but I'm down. I'm reading this book with an open mind, and I'm choosing to enjoy the experience and the ride that he's taking me down. And we have a lot of similarities. And some of the ways that he says things truly translates my feelings that I've never actually been able to express. I've never even put thought to it, but I feel it. And that in itself allows me to reclaim my values and what's important to me as I continue to learn more about my boundaries and to protect my environment. And he wrote something about, we're all just looking for an explanation to figure out how to get back to home and still love and still question without really ever truly knowing all the answers. And I knew that concept. I had my existential crisis question when I was 15, 13, 12. I knew all along that the greatest pursuit is the truth, and that we will never attain the level of knowledge like our Creator can, like our Creator has. And we will always be here on this planet, in our skin, trying to make sense of everything. And we will live and be convicted by the truth that we know of and are programmed, because we are in a civilization. We're programmed in different groups of society until we start looking within. We start exploring, and he mentioned something about traveling and museum and motion, and it's just beautiful. It's just truly beautiful. So I am a fan of this book because of how it reads. It's very melodic, has a lot of prose, and it's inspiring me again to be creative and to really put words and metaphors to the exact things that I absolutely enjoy doing. And I'm going to read you something here because I think he said something that was very, very, very valuable. All right. This is page 34, a sacred restlessness. There's a certain desperation that underlies the intellectual life, a hunger, an ache, a sacred restlessness. You reach for books, not just to be informed, but to be transformed. You're not reading thinkers like Royo May or Paul Tillich or John C. Lilly or R.D. Lane just to collect ideas. You're looking for a ladder out of the void. You're looking for a myth that holds. Because consciousness is terrifying, sentience is overwhelming. To be aware is to be unmoored in infinity. 10 trillion cells with dreams and memory and longing trying to make sense of a blinking cursor of existence that seems both miraculous and absurd. So you seek to understand, to explain, to integrate. You trace the edges of psychology, theology, cybernetics, philosophy, psychedelics. You play scientist, poet, cartographer, mystic. You follow Lang into the politics of experience, where the basic problem is that we do not know how we appear to others, nor they to us. You follow Royo May into myth, into the modern crisis of meaning and the need for new stories that match the scale of our inner lives. You sit with Paul Tillich and face the existential anxiety of being in a universe that doesn't explain itself, which I find hilarious. And then you stumble into the wild frontiers of John Lilly, who suggests we're programmable beings in an open source reality capable of meta-programming our own operating system. Each voice gives you a piece of the puzzle. Each book becomes a mirror, a manual, a flame. You begin to see that self is the kind of interface between matter and myth, between the nervous system and the divine, between your deepest neurosis and your highest ideals. What psychology calls the unconscious, mythology calls the underworld. What Tillich calls the courage to be, Royo May calls the courage to create. What John Lilly calls metaprogramming, the mystic calls alchemy. These are not contradictions, these are translations, different languages for the same hunger, to feel at home in your own being. And somewhere in the dizzying landscape, you realize you're not looking for answers anymore. You're looking for a mythic architecture that can hold your questions. You want a reason to be that isn't brittle or doctrinal, but something living, poetic, dynamic, something that can be metabolized uncertainty without collapsing under its weight. Something that says, yes, it's okay not to know, but still create, still love, still become. This chapter is the temple of that longing. Pretty cool. I am laughing at the fact that yes, people are still have this existential anxiety of being in a universe that doesn't explain itself. And that is where I look up to the sky and the stars and see that it's not my responsibility to live in a world that does, to understand why we live in a world that doesn't explain itself, because I already know, and that's God. And so the energy to figure out more and the purpose and everything is just futile, in my opinion. But anyhow, I recommend the book. I think it's fascinating. It's fun. I'm enjoying it so much. It's feeding my brain with words and a lexicon. It's evolving it even more, and it's opening up my eyes. And I think that's why he has this big pupil of eye on the cover. Is to truly awaken, and it's to see